This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
While Gaspers and Juracek are our two winners this season, their lack of attendance means Elson leads the points. But what is probably becoming a frustrating familiar position for Sadro, he chases in second. However, today's race at Road America is perhaps one of the most familiar circuits to these SRF drivers. Having hosted the Week 13 race multiple times and being a popular recurrence on the schedule, pretty much everyone should have plenty of experience here. Is this Sadro's chance to finally snatch the points lead? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. We mentioned this track having been used for the SRF Week 13 races, but what is it about this place that makes it ideal for those big grid events? Let's take a closer look at Elkhart Lakes, Wisconsin's famous road course. Welcome to Road America. Nicknamed America's National Park of Speed, it's easy to see why just by looking at how the track is laid out. Long straights are a major feature, and drivers will build up incredible momentum before they find themselves interrupted by tight 90-degree corners. In fact, for a 4-mile circuit, it has shockingly few turns. It also has little in the way of variation in layouts. The main course is only broken up once with a single chicane added in the bend version. But don't take this to mean that it's a boring track. Elevation change happens many times over a lap, with a few places taking you into corners which are quite blind. But 2 of the turns on the back half of the course are perhaps the most distinctive. One is the carousel with its more than 180-degree radius. It just feels like it never stops. The other is the kink. Terrifyingly fast with very little runoff, it can end someone's race in a flash. As you'd expect, the heavy braking zones make for some ideal overtaking spots. Turn 5 sees plenty with its downhill entry. The hurried downs can offer drivers a chance at a sneak attack if you're brave, and then Canada Corner gives you one last shot before the lap is over. It's no wonder major organizations such as IMSA, IndyCar, NASCAR, and the SCCA all host major races here. All in all, many drivers rate this track as the best track in North America. Many who hop in the seat and try it can quickly understand why. You see a little bit brighter views here at Road America, as it's awful cloudy and awful foggy today. But Adam, uh, we're racing the SRF here, and we've talked about how they've raced here a lot. But tell us a little bit more about how the SRF goes on here, and what. Tell us a little bit about the history of this place too.
Yeah, of course, you with the SRF. I mean, low downforce car. You're gonna have. Mostly 90-degree tight corners, but you got a couple of sweeping ones, namely the carousel and all that. So you're going to have to be worried about, not being too heavy on the throttle or car could come around on you, stuff like that. We're seeing it a few times in practice, and that's kind of what I expect here today. But obviously, drafting is going to play a big role. It's going to be pack racing. That's going to be kind of how it's going to be at the top front of this field here for today. But, at the same time, this is a track that a lot of people have been at. I've raced a lot of the Camel GT cars here. We've got Lionheart Retro coming up here later this week. So this is the time of year Road America is getting a lot of use. And it's been getting used since pretty much the 50s. I mean, it's been around for forever and a day, and some of the most scenic country that you're going to find up in Wisconsin. I love this track because it always feels like you're going somewhere as opposed to just the same scenery time in and time out. But of course, running the 4-mile layout here for today, 14 turns, and we've got a 40-minute race on tap for you here today.
Should be some good stuff. Now, let's take a look at that championship. The points of the Spec 1, as I mentioned, currently led by Elson. Sadro and Regalado trailing behind both. In fact, all but one have jumped up into the top five here. Jerry McAreevy, the only one dropping down. But speaking of jumping up, look at Ed Doherty, and that takes us to the Spec 2 championship here, Adam. He's not only cracked into the top five yet again, I'm assuming he is our top driver over in that Spec 2 championship.
Yeah, of course, as soon as you bring him up, he loops it around here in qualifying. So commentator's curse already in full effect here for today. Nico Shuck, Gabe Nail, of course, he leapfrogged them, try to get into first position. So points battle is definitely already shaping up. Bob Kern in fourth. So at the same time, though, I mean, it's going to be pretty tight. S1 tight, S2 tight. It's going to be a good race.
Now, you talked a little bit about the race details. Let's look a little bit more in depth on that. As we said, we're in round 3. Now, they've limited the fuel on these drivers, which is why you'll see that fuel saving in that strategy race that we were talking about, because there will be one scheduled pit stop in the 40-minute race today. They ration the points in this series as well. So even though there's a big field, you still get 25 points for last place every single time. The win always gets 100. They do have penalty points. Every 10 incidents, you lose 3 points. So there's incentive to try and keep it clean out on this track. And they have a free repair if they run into damage. That's going to be essential with how fast you'll be getting down the straights that you have a clean car today. As always, we're watching this, at least some of the scenery here on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red subscribe button. You won't miss a moment here with the Weekend Warriors each week on IESN. Our provisional pole sitter is Max Grau, who comes back, the real-world driver here in a spec racer, out once again in the number 53, besting Daniel Sadro, although he is ahead of Elson for the time being, so that's probably good news for Sadro up there in second. Talking about those pit stops today, joining us in the pits, we have Richard Galuska joining us, keeping watch to see who comes in when. Richard, welcome. I hope it's not too cold down there with all the fog around.
Yeah, no, it's not too bad out here. We'll be okay. Wrap up warm in a coat for these sort of weather conditions, and you'll be all right. It'll be interesting to see how the pit stops play out throughout the race. As Adam said earlier, it's going to be a bit of a pack race, so maybe leading from the front won't be beneficial when it comes to strategy. So we'll have to see how they get on and whether or not that's beneficial to other people behind them.
Keep an eye on that. Currently, it is 76 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface, but a cool 70 degrees out here in the middle of Wisconsin, right at the end of September. Very appropriate for this track, but good conditions for the cars with it being relatively grippy then. As we watch the qualifying continue, I see one driver back that we used to see pretty often here, Adam Austin Winner, appropriately named as he tends to be up at the front, currently 6 in the qualifying. This large pack, even though it is a long lap around, I mean, do you think traffic will be an issue of any sort?
Yes, I actually do. I think in a 40-minute race, you'll have enough things happen in the back, enough things get slowed down that leaders will encounter lap traffic at some point during this event, especially once we start breaking off into packs. But with that said, though, expect very large packs at the start. I mean, you're talking about looking right now at the board, 1st through 13th, all within a second of each other. So that's not a very wide gap at a place like this. And Road America being wide enough of a track and fast enough of a track, you're going to have some room that hopefully you'll be able to stay off each other. But I want to go back to those incidents that you brought up, where if you get docked 10 points for every 3 incidents. It's actually surprisingly easy to get off tracks here if you run just a touch wide here and there. There's a certain spot, coming out of the Moraine sweep there, turn 5, where it's the limit kind of comes out just a touch, and you grab that and it gives you a 1x. So that'll be something that I think people will be watching out for here today, as far as trying to conserve those incidents.
And thankfully, it's not so strict as every 3 incidents. It's every 10 incidents they lose 3 points. So the drivers will have something to keep them sort of safe if they want to bump draft. I see Jason Dunnington jumps up into third recently, ahead of Nico Schuk. And speaking of Schuk, he is our provisional pole sitter in Spec 2. The way you can tell those cars is, as Jason Dunnington has an off there, is if you look at the numbers on the cars. If they have a 200 or above, they are considered a Spec 2 driver. Below that, they are Spec 1. It is the Pro and the AM Championship, and they separate it by iRating out here. Schuk comes across the line and does not improve that time on his 34-1. He's got enough time for one, maybe 2 more laps, depending on how things go. Still with about 3 minutes left. We ride on board with Stevie Ray now. He sits in 6th in the qualifying.
Yeah, Stevie Ray's one of those guys, and he really likes some of these drafting tracks. I think he'll do all right today, even starting in 6th. The goal today, I think, is to qualify into the top 10, and then you're going to have a pretty good chance of seeing where the cards are going to fall. So Stevie Ray definitely doing a good job of that.
Looking to see who's next after Schuk on that Spec 2. I see Dominic Bureau. He's managed to get up to 8th. Not bad. He's actually getting a little bit of a tow from Jason Perry here at the end of the lap through Bill Mitchell Bend and up to the final corner. You talk about the importance of the draft packs as well and the momentum, Adam. This corner, especially onto the front straight, the steepness of this hill can't be overstated, and this is not a very powerful car.
No, it's the most important corner on the racetrack, easy. You've seen many races at Road America historically that have been won or lost there. What runs up to the line based on how good somebody gets around that corner there. 14 is by far, I mean, if you don't have a good run off 14, you're not going to have even a good lap going into qualifying, because that front straightaway is super long, but the kicker is the hill. The hill will kill your momentum in any car. And one thing that a lot of people don't think about with that hill that I've discovered in most cars is you've got to be careful. You have to time your gear shifts right on that hill, especially cars like the SRF. Brought up the fact that we're bringing the Lotus 79 for Lionheart Retro here later this week. Even in that car, you have to be careful with gear shifts going up that hill, or it's going to kill your momentum and it's going to kill your lap time.
As you were talking about that, the 54 of Sanchez, David Garrido Sanchez, now jumps into 3rd position inside of the 2nd row for him.
But look at that, Joe. What that does, though, is that moves that marker 1st now through 16th, all within a second of each other.
Whew. That's, I mean, we talk about a long lap time. It's over 2.5 minutes, and still they are that close. You can see, though, that as we ride on board with Dobek, a lot of drivers are using that draft to find that little bit of time and go that little bit faster. So we could see a few that are out of position. Sanchez, unfortunately, tosses it into the barriers, coming out of the hurried downs.
Probably not the way to finish qualifying.
Yeah, well, he's definitely done now, because he's not going to be able to get around and start another lap, because we have less than a minute left to go. Watching Jeff Jacobson down in 24th as he tries to improve on that 35.5. Let's see if this tow will help. Yes, it does, by a wide margin. 14th. That's a huge jump for the number 40 car. Puts him way more into the mid-back. We're still waiting on about 5 drivers to get a lap time in, but I only see one of them out on the track. That is Mark Gehan. Otherwise, nobody else can really get one started.
Yeah, and both John Kern and Bob Kern are not in the session. Jose Soraya not in the session. So the only one that's in the session that hasn't put down a lap is McReevy.
Clock ticks down to 0. Paolo Brame and Jason Perry going to be the first across the line. Jason got a nice little run. And this last lap across is another couple hundredths quicker, which actually does bump him up to 8th. See who else is coming to the line here. Looks like Daniel Sadro, who still doesn't have the pole, pulled away from Max Grau, who is a whole 10th ahead of him, is now coming around the final corner. He's being followed by Jason Dunnington, who is in fourth, directly behind him on the grid right now. Could this allow Dunnington to maybe overstep Sadro? They climb up that hill towards the start-finish line. 33.7, the quickest for Sadro. Can he improve that 1/10? No, he cannot. Dunnington also does not improve, unfortunately. Looks like Mark Geehan, is he going to be the last one to cross? Or do we have other people coming? Looks like a couple others, including Grau.
So
Geehan's going to
he
abandon his
popped
lap.
up here just in the nick of time to start working on a qualifying run. I think he left the session for a little bit. He's going slow, though, right now. I'm not sure he's going full throttle, so.
Grau comes across, and that is not an improvement for him either. So we watch Stevie Ray. He's being followed by Jeff Jacobson still. And also don't forget Tony Schuch, who has fallen all the way down to 23rd since we last looked. Ray out of that final corner one more time, and he's not interested in giving any more of a tow back to Jacobson. He ducks into the pits for practice entry, which will need practice for sure as fast as you climb that hill. Jeff Jacobson across the line, and no improvement for him.
Yeah, Stevie Ray's going to duck off.
Brian Short up to 25th with his final lap. I think Matt Solbloom.
He just crossed the line,
driver.
so he's done.
And
I don't see anybody out there on a hot lap anymore, Joe.
No, but it was a quicker one for Solbloom. He gets to 34th position. Let's go through our starting grid for today. Max Grau, as I mentioned, is on the pole. Daniel Sadro going to be starting next to him, positioning himself well to finally get a win this season and finally get a win in a while. It's been quite a time since he's been at the top step. David Garrido Sanchez will be in third with Jason Dunnington in P4. Nico Schuch is on the inside of row 3. Pepe Vasquez Martinez will start in 6. Stevie Ray did not offer a draft to the car behind at the very dying stages and winds up in 7th. Jason Perry in 8th. Austin Winter got bumped down to 9th when all was said and done. Then you get 2nd in that Spec 2 race on the grid, and that goes to Dominique Bureau in 10th.
Yeah, going to 11th position here, Fred to say he's going to be starting in that 11th spot. Steven Nelson next to him. Edward Doherty in 13th position. Michael Shaw 14th in row 7. Row 8 is going to go to Jeff Jacobson and Ryan Walker. Chris Murakami in 17th and Samuel Dick in 18th. And that is 18 cars, folks. They're going to be starting this race within a second of the pole. That is over half the grid. 19th position is going to go to Tom Gradwell. Ian Haycox in 20th.
David Gregorio will be 21st, followed by Hugh Haycox, just behind his father, and Tony Schuch will be starting next to him in 23rd. Ramon Regalado will be P24, followed by Brian Short. We saw just finish his quickest lap on the last asking. He'll start 25th. Wayne Palmer, 26th, and Michael Dobeck in 27th. Then you've got Gabe Nail in P28. Next to him is going to be Gary Wolbolt and Paulo Breme in 30th.
In 31st spot, you'll find Jeff Cantor, Bill Daly in 32nd. Row 17 is going to go Giola for Colin in 33rd. Matt Sobloom in 34th. Mark Geehan in 18th position. Jerry McAreevy is in the session. Did not get a chance to put down a time. He got here really late, but does look like he's racing in 36. However, in row 19, row 20, the Currents and Soraya, they are not in the session. Doesn't look like they're going to take the grid.
As we wait for them to run the lap behind the Porsche pace car, we want to remind you that the Weekend Warriors is brought to you by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more at simstickers.co.uk. Big thank you to them for once again sponsoring, as they have done in seasons past, with the Weekend Warriors. Highly recommend you go check that website out and see what you can do with your rig and improve it with a little bit of help for yourself, if you will. on figuring out what button to push in the heat of the moment. They head down to turn 1. Behind that pace car, going to be a rolling start, as is traditional around here. And with this large field, the question is, how tidy is it going to be into that turn 1, Adam?
I actually think it'll be okay. It's turn. The numbering here is a little funky, but turn 3 I think will be the bigger one, and then turn 5, that first really sharp 90-degree corner, first gear corner, that'll be the one that we will have to watch out for.
Now down the moraine sweep under that famous Sargento Cheese Bridge here in Wisconsin, up to one of the more popular spots for passing, a much harder braking zone than we see for turn 1. Adam talked about it, how they've paved the outside, but it is out of bounds, so drivers do need to be careful about how frequently they let their car stray. But lap 1, turn 5 is a trouble zone for sure, as many times drivers outbrake themselves, not being used to being stuck in so much traffic. And this should give you an idea out of how much traffic is going to be coming into there. Those are some great shots of just how big this field is.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, let's see, I think we counted 36 cars taking the green flag here in just a moment. And I'll tell you, that's tight enough down there that even I've seen experienced guys end up having problems on pace laps down there from running into one another. Nothing like that out there here for today, but if you can imagine going in there at race pace, well, it could get a little tight real quick for some of these guys.
And experience certainly counts for something. We talked about Max Grau having raced in real life, and sometimes we don't always see that translate to the sim world, but Max is not falling to that trope. The number 53 has been competitive, if not as good at finishing races up at the front. Maybe he can deny that today. They now come out of the carousel and up towards the kink. In your experience, Adam, are you able to take the kink flat out in this car?
I honestly have not raced much of the Spec Racer Ford at Road America. It's one of the very few car combinations, especially in a popular track like Road America, that I just don't have a lot of experience on. But I know most cars, high downforce cars, you can. This being a little bit of a lower downforce car, I wouldn't be surprised if we have to blip the throttle a little bit. We'll have to listen to some of the engine notes as they come by and maybe see what those lead cars are doing here once the race gets going.
Race will get going pretty quickly because now they approach Canada Corner, just a few between themselves and the starting line, where they'll wave that green flag, and we'll get going for 40 minutes. This is probably the other most notorious passing spot into Canada Corner, but there is a gravel trap waiting to the outside for anybody who overshoots it into there. The fearsome Bill Mitchell bend with its blind crest then leads right into the final corner. We dwelled on it a lot, but with good reason. Drivers probably dwelling mentally on this corner a heck of a lot just to make sure they get the run off of it. Who's going to get the run with the green flag? Max Grau waiting for the pace car to pull in, which does now. He's stacking them up, waiting for the green flag as they climb the hill. Everybody getting a little bit antsy here. Green flag is out here for round 3 in the Weekend Warriors, and Max Grau gets a nice jump over Daniel Sadro, who immediately looks to the inside for a slipstream. Stays there, though, ahead of Sanchez, maybe trying to cover himself off. Doesn't want to lose the second place as they approach that first corner. Now they all hit the binders up around the outside. That looks like Dunnington looking for third place. Doesn't quite work out. Rest of the field piles through, and it is looking relatively tidy.
Yeah, and Sanchez and Sadra already starting a little bump it drafting there, going through the front straightaway. That is something that you can do in these cars to an extent, and I would not be surprised to see that on the front straightaway here today.
Did not get a good run off of turn 3 and down the moraine sweep to his inside. David Sanchez has the desired line, but it's 2x2 because behind them that's Martinez and Dunnington that are also fighting for fourth. Dunnington a little bit better on the brakes as everybody now slams them to get woed up for turn 5.
By the way, everybody good up until this point here. We are seeing a few guys go wide. I think everybody's getting through turn 5 and surviving as well. Indeed, everybody does. Entire field through.
This is about the tidiest SRF start I've seen at Road America. But credit to all the drivers. This is fantastic stuff. Fair racing, but it is allowing Sanchez and Grau to run away. I see Shuk is running down the order. Did he have a slow exit out of turn 7? He's fallen to 8th now. And they come around the carousel and up towards the king for the first time, Adam.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by how much Grau and Sanchez have been able to separate themselves here. Dunnington and Sadra must not have had good exits there in the last couple of 90-degree bends, but that's a good bit of separation. Martinez way after. Martinez is around right in front of Jason Perry. Jason Perry misses him. Oh, big wreck here.
Oh, cars are trying to take avoiding action, but now the mess has started. Number of them slowing down, checking up to make sure they can weave through. Still, people, though, are having trouble from running into the stopped cars on the track. Jacobson took a number of hits. Let's look at the replay.
Doherty was involved in that. I mean, we already saw Sanchez flipping around. That's a hard hit. That was Doherty that I think was kind of a secondary one there that got turned into the concrete, and then Sanchez just goes for a wild ride. Just keeps getting nailed, and that is somewhere where multi-car accidents are famous for on this track, and well, that showed why right there.
Martinez was the first, unfortunately, to fall victim. Maybe everybody behind trying to check up and watch out for it. Doherty, yeah, it looks like Doherty maybe was a completely separate incident, but almost a carbon copy. Being spun off to the right and into the wall. We wondered if there would be a split due to an accident early on, Adam, and it seems that this is the one that we feared.
Yeah, and now we have a bunch of damaged cars out. Sadro, hold on, we need to go back. Sadro just came out with damage here. He was running in turn 3. There you go. Oh, that was a car. That was a car behind him. Sadro caught the grass, ended up in the tires and the concrete. That right side of his machine is all tore up.
This is exactly what he does not want on a race where he could have made good points on his rivals. There you see the mistake. Costly now.
And I think it's important to note, though, that even with that damage, he is going to want to try. I mean, as long as the suspension's straight, he's going to have to try to fight through, because a lot of cars got taken out in that first incident there. And some of those guys have come in, got repairs. There is one fast repair in this series. So you want to try to stay ahead of those guys if at all possible.
And while we have to focus on all the action out on the track, Richard has the time to take notes at all the cars trundling by. Richard, who all has been stuck and who all got involved in that?
So there was a lot of cars, unfortunately, in that. About 10 cars involved in all of those incidents, all told. Some big losers in there. Vasquez Martinez, probably the biggest of all of them, who's running in 6th and is now down in the pits. So that was unfortunate. Samuel Dick, who was in 18th, is now down in 36th. So it's been, and both those guys, I should say, don't seem to be running anymore. So it's been really, really dangerous and risky out there for people, especially after that big incident.
So we watched on screen, that was Sanchez overtaking the lead from Grau. These two have separated from Jason Perry, who runs 3rd, by about 2 seconds. Jason does have some friends with him. Dunnington and Stevie Ray could maybe work together, see if they could get a draft train going, much like we're seeing our leaders doing with Grau giving a nice little push to the 54.
And this is great. I mean, this is some stock car tactics right there. Just trying now, I think, between the two of them to try to separate. Now, the question is going to be, how much faster is a 2-car pack than a 3-car pack that you've got behind them that you see on your screen now with Ray, Perry, and Dunnington?
And Dunnington, Ray.
Oh, I was getting ready to say another 3-car pack behind them, but Nico Shook just turned it into a 2-car pack by spinning, going there through turn 3.
He did indeed, and thankfully he didn't hit anything like we've seen a few drivers do already, such as Sadro. This is from on board into 3. Oh, he was way wide early in the corner there. Spins it out, gets it going, but he falls to 12th. due to this being so early in the race and a lot of drivers still clumped up and managing to get by. As we come back to our leaders, Sanchez still ahead of, excuse me, no, Grau is back ahead of Sanchez since we last looked. I think this is going to be a common thing where those two will be able to easily swap positions. They certainly seem to have garnered what the game is here, Adam. I don't think they're fighting each other legitimately.
No, they're not. They're just trying to create separation right now. Try to decide it amongst themselves later on in this race. So it's just going to be a matter of watching the next couple laps, seeing who's faster. But just visually watching it, these two are faster than that 3-car pack behind them.
Meanwhile, we're on board with Dunnington, who manages to get on by Jason Perry, but not Stevie Ray. He's going to brake before he takes 2 cars into Canada corner. You talked about the 2-car pack, or now 2-car pack behind them. That's Winner and Desai. They are looking like they're catching a little bit here, so I think they could make this a 5-car train potentially.
Yeah, that second pack, yeah, that's going to end up being a 5-car pack there. I think these 3 are actually being a little bit more racy than what they should be, as opposed to actually working together, and that's probably playing a role in that second group there starting to catch up.
Dunnington with another run, and this time he overtakes Stevie Ray. Jason now onto the podium with that move. There you see the group behind them. The orange car is Winner, and Desai in the black machine behind him. Behind them, things really start to get spread out. Steve Elson is all on his lonesome. He's our points leader, so he'll want to try and make some inroads from this 8th position. He did start in 12th, so he gained some from avoiding the accidents on lap 1. Daniel Sadro has fallen in behind him. So Sadro's got a front row view to the driver he's trying to chase in the points, and unfortunately now he's got a damaged car on top of it.
Just watching some of the games going on with the bump track and everything else, guys pulling this off great. Trying to look through the field here and seeing how some of the other damaged cars are doing. Obviously, it seems like a lot of guys trying to wait to maybe till their pit stop to take their fast repair, which is not a bad strategy. Another big battle that we got going on here right now is Rigaldo, who's actually off, almost loses the back end right in front of his pack with Hugh Haycox, David Gregorio, and Michael Dobek as well. So good battle there for 12th through 15th.
Younger Haycox manages to get himself into P12 with that move, which moves him up to the 2nd place in the Spec 2 race. Tony Shuk is currently our leader in that, but he's well up the road. Is another off for Regalado, pushing the car hard on the exits of corners, and as he comes back on, there goes Gregorio around the outside of the carousel.
You need to be careful. Here, it's really easy, like I was talking about in the pre-race, to get some of those off tracks, much easier than you actually think. And he's just pushing it too hard. I think he's seeing a little bit of red right now, too. So he just needs to calm himself down and kind of get back into the groove and just turn laps right now and try to work with the pack and make up some ground.
Watch from on board Hugh looking back at Gregorio now, but Gregorio is going to get overtaken because there goes Regalado trying to get the spot back into Canada corner, but he drifts a little bit wide. They come together. They're starting to drift into the tires, and as they tangle up, there goes Michael Dobek. Says, you guys can sort that out amongst yourselves. I'll take 13th now.
It honestly looked like they got stuck there for a little bit. So maybe a netcode issue or something like that, keeping them together. But either way, that separates them out a little bit.
Well, that was a little bit messy and certainly allowed Dobek to really take advantage as up the hill this group goes. Back into turn 1 once again. Regalado and Gregorio have not settled it, still side by side. See if they can maybe get this figured out by turn 1. Gregorio a little bit deeper on the brakes, but too deep. Both of them too deep. He gets tipped. Regalado continues on as Gregorio has to catch the car. watch the replay here. Well, that did not work out how the Pennsylvania driver wanted it to. And in fact, he might be damaged because he just had another spin coming out of 3, and the 27 has come to a halt. There he gets it turned around, but this is lots and lots of positions lost. No real big update here. Sanchez ahead of Grau now, but they're still together, and they've gapped Dunnington now by about 2.7 seconds.
That gap there, actually, Jason Perry was a second faster than your leaders that last time by. So watching this closely, because visually it seems like they're starting to catch them just a touch, but they also got to worry about Winter and Desai. They're starting to catch them from behind as well. So that second pack there are going to start feeling the pressure from the front and the back.
Through the kink.
Ooh, that was a little bit of an aggressive move by Max Grau right there to take the lead back from Sanchez. Almost put it in the grass, which would have made him loose and going through the kink. But moved Grau back up to the lead.
Maybe he doesn't want to sit there. So as Adam now takes off to cover Big C's, we'll continue to watch this race with Jason Perry trying to chase down our top 2 who've got good pace but only have 2 cars compared to what is now steadily becoming 5. Look at that. You're seeing more flashes of Austin Winter. And up the hill they go to cross the line. We're still 27 minutes left in this race, so not even halfway through. Going to see another change for the front of this second group. Perry being passed now by Dunnington, who moves himself into 3rd. And I do see a driver coming into the pits. Richard, it looks like Steve Elson is coming your way.
Yeah, the first guy who looks like he's making his regular pit spot, so it'd be interesting to see how that pans out for him. He wasn't really with anyone at the time, so wasn't really getting a draft, so maybe he hopes that he can find somebody as he comes out of the pits and get a bit of time that way. We'll have to see how it works for him.
So car pops back into place as our leaders are once again side by side, this time into turn 5, but now Max Grau moves up ahead of Sanchez. The gap behind them down to 2.7 seconds. Jason Perry being led by Dunnington in that group as they come through 5 as well. Stevie Ray, the 3rd in line, 5th overall. Austin Winter now very much back up to the gearbox. Fred Desai, the tail of the train in P7. They've got a huge gap back to 8th position, 10 seconds to Chris Murakami, who is essentially a best of the rest sort of situation.
Yeah, and one of the big losers in this race so far is Daniel Sadro. He looks like he's just dropping back and back at the moment. Every time anyone gets near him, he's just letting them through. So obviously the damage on his right-hand side is really making his life difficult at the moment, which is a shame for him.
And, you know, Richard, we already saw that Elson managed to come in and take a pit stop, which we think is scheduled. I wouldn't be surprised if Sadro also tries to join him. Meanwhile, we jump back up to the front where Max Grau has been overtaken by Sanchez, this time into Canada corner. So Sanchez, your new leader, as we jump back to the second pack.
Yeah, all on as even at the moment in that pack. 5 of them following nose to tail and slowly gaining a little bit of time on the leaders, but not a huge amount. So it'll be interesting to see if they can play together and maybe catch up with those guys, or if they're going to be stuck fighting out for the rest of the race. Oh, and as I say, that one guy drips into the pit, so he's obviously had enough. Stevie Ray's decided that he's had enough of that and wants to try something different. So again, it'll be interesting to see how that pays out for him.
Pretty much tradition for Stevie Ray to be one of the early drivers to pit as he looks for his stall. As Jason Perry now going to overtake Dunnington for 3rd. Obviously, we're getting well into the pit window, it seems. And Ray was relatively far ahead of Elson. Let's see where he comes out. The good news for Elson is it looks like he came out into clear air here, Richard. So he should be able to run laps on his own. Granted, he doesn't have anybody to help kind of push him along, I suppose.
No, he doesn't, but it looks like they're going to come up pretty close together. would be very, very close between them. And your earlier comment about Daniel Sadro was dead right. He's taken the opportunity to come in and fix his car and hopefully gain back some of the speed he was losing in the first stint.
Sadro back out in what looks like 21st, just ahead of Nico Schuk, who has not taken his stop yet. Sadro has a little bit of traffic in front of him for Colin and Gregorio, the two up in front, which he should have pace to catch rather quickly. Hopefully he doesn't get held up. Meanwhile, we've jumped back to this battle for third, and that is Fred Desai being shoved out of the way by Dunnington. And Winner is now up at the front and is starting to leave them behind.
Yeah, he's taking advantage of the opportunity with everyone fighting to get a little bit of space. That's the problem in these cars, is if you work together and you do the bump draft, you're going to gain a lot of time, but if you get into trouble with each other, you're going to lose it. So he's taking advantage of the opportunity, but he's still pretty close to the guys behind him. So, oh, speaking of which, oh, big crash there, big crash.
Yep, that was Dunnington who initially lost it, and Jason Perry was the innocent victim who caught him out. Already some chatter between them on the radio. Jason expressing no hard feelings. It's definitely a racing incident.
Perry, yeah, unfortunately, Jason just stepped offline, and when you go through that corner and do that, you're going to be in trouble, and innocent victim behind him to take the damage. It's the way these things go, unfortunately.
I think Dunnington has managed to get the car going as we look at our leaders swapping the lead. Max Grau in front of Sanchez. So I think Dunnington's going to come around to try to take his spare car. And indeed, he's coming into the pit lane now, I can see. That won't set him back too badly, not as much as Perry, who with his tow. And actually, Perry's left the race, so he is elected to just call it a day, even though he had a spare car waiting for him. The Northwest drivers, 28, not looking in the best of condition.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you have an accident like that and you can't get yourself back to the pit lane, yes, you have a fast repair, but you're still going to lose a lot of time. Jason Dunnington lucky that he's able to limp back to the pits and do his pit stop, so he's obviously lost out, but it won't be as bad, so shouldn't affect his race as badly as it might have done, which is fortuitous for him.
So we ride on board with Sanchez looking ahead at Grau. That accident means that the group behind has gone from 5 down to 2. It is just Winner and Desai left in third and fourth. But we'll see if these two can manage to work together and run down the top two. Even when they had more cars, they certainly weren't having the easiest of time because it's extended to about 3.6 seconds now and continuing to grow. Just about hitting that halfway point now with 20 minutes into round 3 with the Weekend Warriors presented by Sim Stickers. We look back now at the battle for P5 between Murakami and Schuk.
Yeah, Murakami's on the back of him and not too far away, and a little slide there coming out of the corner from Schuk isn't going to help him either coming through the carousel and later on the lap, but it'll be interesting to see if he can close up close enough down the main straight to get past him, but he's a little far away at the moment, so no chance to make a move just yet.
Had an overtake for 7th place, Hugh Haycox. What an incredible run for our 2nd place driver in the Spec 2 race. He just took 7th place, and he started this thing in 22nd. Granted, we have to concede that he probably gained a lot from the big incident on lap 1 through this part out of the kink. Regardless, I mean, you take what you can get, Richard. A good result is a good result.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shame in going into a race further down the order and taking advantage of what happens in front of you. You know, mistakes will happen in front, and accidents do occur. And if you can steer clear of them and run your race well, then more power to you and well done. So he's looking good so far in the race.
Oh, and we got a couple cars coming in. Sanchez pits without Grau. Winner also is in. Fred Desai is in. So is Tony Schuk. Looks like Chris Murakami. Wow, a lot of drivers. Everybody going halfway. Oh, this is really unusual. We tend to see drivers run long to avoid getting into traffic. I wonder if the thinning out from that opening accident has caused a few to be confident that they could pit early and come out in clear air.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to take the opportunity. Max Grau running out there on his own had a bit of free air and potentially could have done the overcut there, but unfortunately made a mistake coming out of turn 3 onto the back straight and will have lost some time there. So it's going to be interesting to see how he and Sanchez look when they get back onto the main straights after the pits.
Don't usually expect drivers to be short on fuel, even when they race here. I'll have to ask and see if that's the reason for everybody coming in now, because I'm looking down the field. Yeah, pretty much everyone. Only Grau, Regalado, Cantor has stayed out. He's running in 8th position. And that's it. 3 drivers have managed to go into lap 9. So with less than 18 minutes left, we're waiting to see how this pit cycle works out for the top 2 of Grau and Regalado. Quite a bit of space between them as Ramon was battling way farther down the field.
Yeah, and Stevie Ray, who we were looking at earlier in the race, is one of the earliest pit stops. Has come out in a pretty good position. He's looking strong and pretty close onto the battle, which was for 4th and 5th, earlier in the race. So interested to see if he can get past Winner, who's in front of him at the moment.
The Winner running just about 3/4 of a second ahead of the number 11. Now we're watching Grau coming around the final corner and towards the pit lane. Have to imagine he'll be coming in, and indeed he does. Again, this is a battle with Sanchez, though. What is going to work better? Going that 1 lap longer? Did he save enough fuel that he's going to have a short stop? Or is the 54 in clean air without having to fiddle with Max Grau constantly trying to overtake him? Is he going to be faster?
Yeah, I was looking at both Grau's overcut attempts and now Sanchez trying to make up the time when he's on his own, and you can see how hard they're both pushing, making little mistakes as they go around the lap, just trying to eke the most speed they can and potentially get themselves out of the tow. As I say that, Sanchez has a mistake out of the last corner and hits the wall.
Oh, and that loses him 2 spots immediately because Ray and Winner go by. Grau obviously is going to beat him out, but Winner's actually coming on with a head of steam. Grau gets out of the pits. What's this gap going to look like once it slims down? Looks like Ray and Winner are going to swap positions. And as they come through, Regalado, interestingly, has still not pit. He stayed out another lap and is slotted in behind Grau, but the gap from Ray to the leader is about 4.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that Regalado stayed out there. It goes with your comment earlier.
Sorry, Stevie Ray coming out of turn 3. His good run has unfortunately been given a setback. He spins it around a full 360 degrees and returns in 6th place, which is going to drop another spot as we watch the replay here. Oh, those hands were moving a lot very early in the corner.
Yeah, as I said, as you can see, saw earlier, people are just fighting so hard. It's very difficult to keep control of these cars when you go through the corners. You want to maintain that momentum, and you can see he got out on the grass, had a little bit of a twitch and just couldn't control it, and that's not the end of his race, but it certainly put him a bit further back than he was looking good before then. It's a shame.
Max Grau, who retakes the lead after his pit stop, being chased by Regalado, who is one of 2 cars we're waiting to pit. Cantor, the other one, who runs in 8th position. This should promote Winner up into 2nd place and Desai into 3rd when all is said and done. They come through the kink there onto into the kettle bottoms. And something appears to have happened to our leader in the Spec 2 race, and he's lost that lead. In fact, he just had another problem. Oh, and it's a bad problem. Let's go to what initially set him back. Trying to see where exactly this is. It looks like out of turn 7 into the hurry downs. And that's Sadro behind him. Oh, I hope Sadro didn't get into him. He's had enough woes this race. Oh, no, it was his own mistake. And the 246 spun it around without hitting anything, it looks like. Now, this other incident, he did hit something. And I think it was in the same spot. No, this is out of turn 6. Just a little bit earlier. Wheels in the grass, Richard. Oh.
Yeah, it's biting a lot of people now. They're just pushing that a little bit too hard, trying to maintain the momentum through the corners, which is so important when you're driving these cars to keep that speed up. But if you put one or two wheels on the grass, you're going to have problems. And he's not the first person to fall victim to that, sadly. Too much damage for him to continue. He had to tow back to the pit, so that's really wrecked his race, which is unfortunate for him. But he's still there, and will probably come back into the race once he's had his repair.
The last of our drivers finally pit. Regalado comes in and Cantor comes in. That settles out our order. So why don't we run you down our top 10 to give you a refresher on what's been going on in this race. Starting out with Max Grau. He's yet to take a win this season, but he's looking pretty likely to snatch it today. Considering he put it on pole, it is a well-earned result, having better pace than just about everybody out there that we've seen. Austin Winter, started this race in 9th, but just through cleverly climbing up with the draft and hitting each rung of the ladder, eventually he found himself in 2nd after a mistake from Sanchez ahead of him. Behind him, falling away, is Fred Desai. He was a lot closer to winner before, but unfortunately it's now a 5-second gap, and Fred does not look like he has the legs to try to gain on him. Steve Elson, our championship leader, is going to extend his points lead because his main rival is well back there at this point, the 56, just outside the podium for the moment. Then you get to 5th place, Stevie Ray. Could have had a little bit better of a result, but a spin cost him some spots. He could have looked at a podium today, but he falls to 5th with that mistake after his pit stops. What do the next 5 look like here in the race, Richard?
So then after that, we've got Sanchez, who was having a good race, but one of the many people, unfortunately, who's had mistakes, and that's set him back a little bit further than he would have liked. But not too bad a result, and he could have lost a lot more. Daniel Sadro, who was he's now running in 8th, and had so much damage. Running in 7th, and had so much damage for half of the race. Wasted it out, got to his pit stop, and has repaired that damage, and has probably done well to salvage something out of this race because he had extensive damage on the right-hand side of that car. Then we got Jason Dunnington, who again has had a difficult race, had a spin coming out of the kink, had some contact there, which is again yet another car that's had contact and damage in this race, but he's kept going. He's used his fast repair, and he's plugging away and pushing as hard as he can. Behind him, coming up in 9th, is Chris Murakami, one of the people who's really gained in this race, potentially from how many incidents there have been in this race. He's managed to gain some good places, so he's up from the 17th on the start line. So that's a great result for him so far. And then in 10th, we've got Michael Dobek, who's gained 17 places since the beginning of this race, which is a huge bonus. Obviously, again, managed to avoid that big early accident and has made the most of the opportunity to get himself a good result today, hopefully, if he can keep that one going.
We're seeing a few of our drivers who had to pit early and take their spare cars come in for a second stop since they were involved in that early accident. I see Shaw has come in, Gradwell, Bureau, Jeff Jacobson. I believe we saw Hugh Haycox also have to come in. Oh, and Hugh just spun. That was out of turn 3. The 233 of Hugh Haycox, unfortunately, having a bad day, go a little bit worse. He gets the car going. Didn't hit anything, but now he falls to 19th. Might have a little bit of a battle for 4th here. Elson and Ray. Oh, Ray going 2 wheels into the grass. He keeps his foot in it, and I think that's going to give him the position. Elson really not wanting to mess with him. and falls right in behind, but hot into the corner of Canada. Corner all the way off, just narrowly avoids the tire. Stevie Ray's, and he spins back, plunges the nose into the concrete, and the day is done.
Yeah, that was looking like a brilliant move for a moment there. Really, really impressive driving, using all of the road and a little bit more than was available to him, but just got too hot into the corner and tried to hold it through the gravel. And then coming back onto the track, it got away from him and he's hit the wall. And as you say, that's race over with the car the wrong way up.
Just had Nico Schuk go off. We don't need to go to it, but unfortunately the 287 having trouble with the hurry downs. Right now our leader in the Spec 2 is a driver we haven't even mentioned, I don't think. Gary Wobolt in the 215 is running in 12th. Another one that is basically capitalizing on others' misfortune to get himself a class win. It's only got to last about 7.5 more minutes to do so, which will only be about 3 laps, I believe. Somewhere close to that, maybe a little bit more, possibly 4 laps.
Should be around 3 more laps to go from here. Just a little over 2 laps left in terms of the time available to them. So they should be coming around for their last lap before too long.
Watching Mark Gehan chasing Doherty. Gehan in the mostly green car, the green and white belonging to Ed. And they've got a car coming out, that's Ian Haycox, having repaired some damage, and he lets them go around the outside.
Yeah, he did a good job of staying out the way there, but you can see even that little bit of uncertainty of having the car on your inside has affected Mark. So he's lost a bit of time going through that section and then got a little bit loose coming onto the straight. Very loose, in fact, and has gone round. Yet another person to step onto the grass there and have the car kick out on him, but he's still going. So done exactly what Stevie Ray did earlier in the race. Hopefully he can avoid doing the same mistake later on in the track as well.
You know, it's a little foggy. I didn't think it was this foggy that drivers can't see the edges of the track. Yep. Oh, you're exactly right. Look at that. Just dips the wheels off. And that was all she wrote. The New Englander eventually gets it turned around, but he falls to 20th with that. Ahead of him, that's a battle for position. Gradwell just managing to overtake Daly. For us expecting a draft race, it has very much settled into everybody having a piece of track all their own. I'm looking through the field, and many have spread out pretty far. We do have a bit of a battle for 12th going on between Gregorio and Wobolt. This is actually, we mentioned Wobolt, our Spec 2 leader, so he will get more points if he does pass Gregorio, even though he is a Spec 1 driver, but the question is how much does he want to push that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much pressure he can put onto him and whether it's a good opportunity to pass. With this little time left in the race, only a few more laps to go, he may want to just keep it safe and get it home safe to the end of the race. With so many people falling at the wayside in this race, such a high level of attrition, he may want to just stay out of trouble and get those points that he can collect.
Yeah, qualifying 29th and racing in 13th. So he must have lost his position recently, because I'm seeing him scored last time across the line as 12th. Could be that unfortunately just unable to hold back Gregorio as they also cross the line one more time now. Now, did Matt Reevy have another stop?
He started at the back of the grid and has worked his way up from 36, so he didn't set a lap time, Jerry. And he's made his way through all of the carnage, all the chaos, and he's now just calmly got himself going around in 11th place. So 25 positions gained is incredibly impressive, and I would imagine has to be the biggest gain of this race. I can't imagine anyone else has managed to do the same thing.
I think Bill Zahn would have a discussion with you on who gets that hard charger when they don't qualify. Regardless, you're right, just so many cars that he had to pass to get here. The 67, sort of known for sometimes starting from the back. He often will try and come in and not practice if he's late from work and see what he can get in. currently right on board just behind him. That's between Wobolt and Gregorio. Battle that we were watching not too long ago. Keeping an eye on our leaders as well. And I think we have 2 laps to go because Max Grau is coming up the hill now. This has not been a completely straightforward race for the number 53. Oh, and David Sanchez, who already lost himself a chance at the win, was trying to hold back Sadro. Let's see what happens fully on the replay. Wide into the corner. And yet another car that loses it on the grass, but he doesn't hit anything. He just decides that he's had enough of today and he's going to take a tow. Well, this is great news for Sadro. He's now only 1 point or 1 position behind Steve Elson.
Yeah, and you've got to be impressed with him just soldiering on. It goes to show that even though you have a setback early in the race, if you just keep your head down and keep plugging away, then you can still get a good result out of these things. So, as I said, he was running with damage on the right-hand side, and it was pretty severe for the first half of the race, but he's just kept on at it and managed to get himself back up to 5th, which is really impressive.
Taking a look at 3rd place, Fred Desai, who was before fighting with Winner for 2nd, is now trying to retain the podium. Here comes Steve Elson. Maybe he's getting the hurry up now that he sees Sadro is only 1 spot behind. Try and increase how many points he can win over him. Just tucked into the tire tracks of that number 76 down into the hurry downs. He'll get a good chance with the slipstream coming out of the carousel towards Canada Corner. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, he's going to really want to see if he...
Oh, we've had an incident with Murakami. Did he hit the wall here? I think he managed to avoid it. And this is turn 6. Not the first driver having trouble out of this corner. Ooh, he did hit it. Just a little nudge, and it's the end of the race. So, though he fell down to 8th, hopefully that damage is not too bad. Continue to watch this battle for P3. I'm keeping an eye on our leader, who's just getting ready to take the white flag. So we'll go to Grau once we get closer to the checkers. This really the fight that's important for the time being.
Yeah, you've got 2 obvious overtaking opportunities now coming back down the main straight here. If Elson can get a good drag into the first corner, he's got an overtaking opportunity, but he's then going to have to fend him off for the rest of the lap. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays this. He might wait a little bit further into the lap and see if he can get back there past then and make sure there's no opportunity for him to be re-overtaken by Fred. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out now as he come up to the first corner.
Fred's got to run, but he's waiting. This is a big lift. Elson is waiting, rather. Elson, the one behind who we're riding on board with. So he is going to wait and play a little bit of mind games to see if he can get by Desai later in the lap and not give him the opportunity. Will he go here down into turn 5, or will he wait for Canada Corner? We got time to watch this.
Yeah, I'll be astonished if he doesn't go for a move here. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Let's watch it now.
He's gaining on him. The gap closes in, but it stalls out. Elson's not going to take it here. They come down to the braking for 5. Downhill, 90-degree left-hander. He gets close to the back, but does not attack.
Yeah, you can see Stephen was a little bit unsettled there. He was not expecting Fred to break that early, and it just put him off a little bit, but he's managed to control it, and he's keeping in touch. He's got one more opportunity, really. One big opportunity going into Canada Corner. That's the most obvious place he's going to make a pass now. So he just needs to keep it close, going through the carousel, keep as close as he can, and see if he's close enough to get that drag into the corner.
Oh, he's sliding a bit coming through 8. That cost him a little time. It's not dire. He's still going to be within that slipstream. No need to go to the growl. He's still now coming through the kink himself as these two come out of the carousel. Critical moments. He's got that slipstream, the 56, closing in. Which side is Desai going to defend? He veers off to the right, drifts it off to the left, middle of the circuit, but he leaves the door open, and Steve Elson manages to get a nose in. They break into Canada corner. If he can get the car slowed up, this might be job done, and Elson's got it. Now we head over to the 53. Max Grau, the real-world driver, has been looking for this one here in the Weekend Warriors, and now he finally finds it. Here at one of the classic American tracks, Road America gives victory to the number 53 of Max Grau. Oh, and what happened here with Desai, Richard?
So Desai just kept his foot in. It looked like the job was done, but he kept pushing him through the last few corners and just found himself an opportunity. Went up the inside into the last corner. You got to respect his tenacity.
Incredible stuff. Let's take a look at the replay. Elson looks almost beside himself as he slows the car. Off the corner as we ride on board with the number 76. Wow, you're right. Just look at the launch. Oh, and Elson sputtering. That's why he was going slow. Oh, so that also explains, Richard, why he was waiting so long to pass. He was trying to ride that train all the way home as long as he could. So we see the rest of the cars coming to the line now. Looks like Woolbolt is going to be our victor in the Spec 2 race today with an 11th place finish.
Yeah, very impressive, and he did manage to get past Gregorio and stay there, so that's a few extra points for him. So he wasn't willing to listen to my suggestion and sit there and take it easy. He was more aggressive than that. That's good racing.
Cantor with a 15th. See some cars. Oh, and we're understanding Gradwell was 15th. Oh, excuse me, my timing and scoring might be messing up here. Oh, Cantor. Cantor's out of fuel. Is he going to make it? Okay, he's crossed the start-finish line. Trying to catch up here to everything that's going on now. And we've got a few drivers still fighting for position in the back. I see Jeff Jacobson and Julio Vercolen. And Jacobson, wow. Gets him at the line for 22nd. Last of the drivers on the lead lap should be Shuk, Burrow, and Short as they all stream across.
Burrow is another one who's run out of fuel, so it's been a big issue for people. That early stop doesn't seem to have helped everybody. A lot of people struggling for fuel at the end, and Burrow's lost a lot of places at the end here. He's about to get passed by Short coming over the line.
Yeah, I think, and Short might not make it as well. He's going to get it a little bit farther. I think he can creep up the hill. All right, now we're going to break for sure as the 550 finishes his race. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you watch on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Road America. Round 3 here at a very foggy circuit in Elkhart Lake. Wound up clearing things up for Max Grau, who finally took a victory in the Weekend Warriors. Austin Winter wound up in second. Fred Desai takes P3, having climbed from 11th. Austin from 9th himself. Steve Elson went from 12th to 4th, ahead critically of Daniel Sadro, who he's fighting the championship with currently. Sadro qualified on the front row and had to settle for 5th. Jason Dunnington, who was up towards the front early on, wound up in 6th position. Michael Dobek takes 27th, having qualified 27th. Chris Murakami winds up in 8th with Ramon Regalado P9. Jerry McAreevy, who did not qualify but still gained a lot of spots, winds up in the top 10.
And then we got in 11th, Gary Warbold, the first of the drivers there. So he's done well to come from 29th on the grid, which is impressive. Behind him, David Gregorio, again, one who started further down the grid in 21st. Following on behind them in 13th is Hugh Haycox, and then Gabe McNeil, who came in 14th. Tom Gradwell in 15th, followed by Jeff Cantor, who was one of a number of people who suffered at the end of the race from running out of fuel, so that dropped him down a few places. Mark Gehan, who then came in 17th, started in 35th, so another person who charged through the field, took advantage of the opportunities there. Nico Shook had a difficult race, started on the grid in 15th, but unfortunately only managed to finish in 18th. Then we had Bill Daly in 19th, followed by Wayne Palmer in 20th.
21st went to Michael Shaw with Jeff Jacobson in 22nd, barely beating out for Colin by less than a tenth of a second for Colin 23rd. Matt Solblum behind them 24th. You start to get into drivers that ran out of fuel here at the end. 25th to Tony Schuch, Brian Short in 26th. First car lap down goes to Ed Doherty in P27, Dominique Bureau in 28th. David Sanchez unfortunately did not finish today as he had a spin late and decided that he just didn't have enough to complete it. Ian Haycox winds up in 30th with Stevie Ray at 31st, Jason Perry 32nd, Walker 33rd, Bream 34th, Martinez 36th, and Dick 36th. The rest of these drivers that you see did not start today below them. We do have our winner ready to talk to us. Max Grau going to try and join us in the booth. And Max, it looked like you at very early in this race managed to get a breakaway with you and Sanchez there. And then suddenly you found yourself on your own. Was it pretty smooth sailing after that?
Yeah, I think so. Both of us, me and Sanchez, were very lucky that there was a lot of chaos behind us, I think. But really, I was surprised when I came out of the pits and there was no one around me.
Now, we talked during the race about how experience can pay a little bit at this track since it's a bit unique, especially in the Spec Racer Ford. But you have experience in real world racing, we understand. Have you ever actually gotten to race the real track here?
Yeah, I have. It's actually one of my local tracks. I'm from the Illinois area, so we've made it up there quite a few times over the past few years.
Well, fantastic. It certainly seems that experience does count for something then. Well, this is your first win in the Weekend Warriors. Do you expect more to be coming? It looked like you had a little bit trouble getting your feet under you to finish races at first, but now you're looking strong.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I for sure had trouble early on finishing races. But I think if I can make the time to show up for the races, I think I can be successful.
Well, that's fantastic. You certainly are giving some of the fast runners a run for their money. Coming up next week, we're heading over to Sebring, which is another long course, but a lot more bumpy. How do you feel going over there?
I mean, I don't have any experience on Sebring, I'll be honest with you. So it's hard for me to say that I can go in there with confidence, but I'll give it my best shot.
Well, we'll look out for you, Max, and best luck continuing on this momentum. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Max Grau, winner here today in round 3. Up next, second place finisher Austin Winter. Richard has caught up with him to talk about his race.
Austin, congratulations on your race. Managed to get a second place there, so well done. Looked like you were running in a group of cars for lots of the race, but it was pretty lonely at the end. How did you find it all?
Austin, do you have a copy? Looks like Austin's mic might not be completely working at the moment. We'll give him a second to try and get it all hooked up here.
Can you guys hear me?
There we go.
I'm sorry, I had it on
go
push
ahead.
to talk.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, no worries. Did you catch my questions there earlier
Yeah,
before
sorry
Austin?
about that. Yeah,
That's right. If you carry on.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun racing in a pack on a draft track like that, but unfortunately had some wrecks around me and was lucky to avoid them and ended up by myself at the end. So just logging laps, kind of hoping Max would run out of gas, but wasn't the case.
Yeah, unfortunately, there were a lot of people in the race who did end up running out of gas, but he sadly wasn't one of them for your benefit. You said you managed to avoid the incidents. Were there any close calls for you, or was it mostly clean sailing for you?
Yeah, there were quite a few, I think, on the opening lap. I don't know who it was that spun in the kink, but rebounded off the wall pretty hard and nearly got me. Other than that, no. I just watched him go, and it was kind of smooth sailing.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can steer clear. I'm pretty sure we saw you get through at one point and get ahead of the cars just before they had a little bit of a catastrophe behind you, so that was fortuitous for you. We saw the cars come in a little bit earlier for the pit stops than we were potentially anticipating. Was that expected based on fuel load, or did the pit start a bit earlier than you were expecting as well?
Definitely earlier than I was expecting. I kind of made the decision when the two people ahead of me went in, I would go in and hope I came out close enough to catch their draft. So I was very surprised when I believe Daniel Sanchez came in.
Yeah, there were a few people who just seemed to come in much earlier than we were anticipating, and there was a bit of a knock-on effect. So it was interesting to see whether it was a surprise to you guys as well. Sebring coming up next. Is that a track you feel confident about? Is it one you can do well again, or not one of your favorites?
Not at all, but neither was this. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, if we learn anything from today, if you can just stick at it, you can get a good result. Congratulations again. It was a really good one. Hopefully we'll speak to you again in the future.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That was our second place finisher, Austin Winner. And now we've got Gabe Nail joining us. He finished 14th, having qualified 28th. One of the drivers that managed to gain some spots from that lap one wreck. Gabe, you came into that right in the midst of probably the most chaos, I'd say, in that group.
Yeah.
Tell us about, from your perspective, what it was like trying to pick through that.
At the point I saw, I actually looked at it through the replay a few times just to see how it all went down. I first saw, I think it was, there was some car that was up in the air, and I was just like, oh gosh, there's a wreck, there's a big wreck. So I was initially cautious. I see people braking in front of me. I don't see anybody directly in front of me, so I'm just like, I'm gonna try to go past them a little bit. I was still on the throttle, and then, and then Ed Doherty came back out because he rebounded from the wall as well, because there were two people that had gone wide and then spun, and one of them was Ed Doherty, and he came back a little bit, and I swear I matrixed him. I did some matrix kind of stuff because I got a phantom 4x from it as well. Like, there was no damage to my car, but I got a 4x for some reason. Needless to say, that was probably one of the scariest things ever. I was just like, oh dear.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So you pass a ton of cars with that, and then you find yourself with the whole race in front of you. How did you calm yourself down to complete this one and try to hold on to the spots that you had moved forward?
Actually, I was just trying to drive around because I was definitely not confident on this track at all. I mean, at all. Like, you can see, like, my qualifying position, I couldn't get any draft, and I was just not confident in this track. So I was just trying to keep it steady. I mean, I had a ton of almost spins that I managed to keep myself together. I managed to save it. I mean, I butchered the last lap and I lost the second place and went down to third, but I was fine with it. I was just like, okay, that's fine.
Coming into this race, you actually managed to be ahead of the two drivers that had won up to that point in this season. What's your ultimate goal in this championship since you're competing in Spec 2?
I'm just my goal is just to do the best that I can each race. I know that's obviously like a really common thing, but I just obviously, like, I like being in Spec 2 because obviously I'm not equate with some of the aliens that are in Spec 1. It's absolutely insane how fast some of those people are. So it feels better for this to be multi-class and for me to be in Spec 2 and actually be winning, and well, I haven't won a race, but placing well and being in a good spot in the championship is really helpful for me. It feels really good.
It sounds like a morale boost. Well, congratulations on a 14th today and staying out of trouble. Hopefully, we'll get to talk to you at Sebring as well.
Yep.
That was Gabe Nail, who was also third today in the Spec 2 race. We are going to close up, though, with a big thank you starting off for our sponsor, Sim Stickers. Again, if you need to check them out, you can find them at simstickers.co.uk. They provide stickers for button boxes, wheels, and keyboards to help you identify what in the world you're pushing in the first place. Now, also, we want to thank you, iRacing, for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe, and you won't miss a moment here for the Weekend Warriors. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Adam, Richard, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel. Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel. And Instagram is GSRC_Graham. We mentioned it. We're heading to Florida for the next round. That'll be at Sebring Sunday, October 6th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, we'll race clean, race hard, and see you on the track.